Clearing mines in the Strait of Hormuz isn't a sweeping operation, it is walking into a pre-sighted kill zone. Many analysts tell you the US Navy can clear the mines but won't, missing the deadly reality of this theater. What they fail to mention is how Iran uses smart influence mines not as a wall, but as a strategic funnel trap. These weapons force specific ships into the crosshairs of drone swarms and shore-based missiles without warning. Here is the unclassified tactical reality no one is talking about regarding the modern naval warfare environment. We must elevate this conversation beyond simple floating explosives and introduce the concept of A2AD kill webs. The Iranian military apparatus is not employing a blind, outdated World War II-style blockade in these waters. Instead, they are operating a highly sophisticated and selective blockade designed to target specific enemies. If the Strait of Hormuz is heavily mined by Iranian forces right now, you might be asking a logical question. Why are massive Chinese and Iranian oil tankers sailing through these congested waters completely unharmed today? You have probably seen viral videos claiming the US Navy is just waiting for the right time to clear the water. But those simplistic geopolitical assessments are completely missing the deadliest part of this naval equation. These weapons resting on the dark sea floor are definitely not your grandfather's floating contact sea mines. The absolute real reason the mighty Navy is holding back has absolutely nothing to do with sweeping technology. They are facing a network of bottom-dwelling influence mines waiting patiently for specific acoustic signatures. These brilliant underwater assassins are programmed to let a heavy Chinese commercial tanker pass without issue. However, the moment the acoustic profile of a US Arleigh Burke-class destroyer passes over, the trap triggers. We must reframe our understanding of these explosive devices and see them not as the primary weapon of choice. In this complex maritime theater, the hidden mines act only as the anvil, waiting quietly beneath the dark waves. The real devastating hammer comes from shore-based anti-ship missiles and lethal swarms of fast attack boats. This coordinated tactical approach completely changes the calculus for any conventional naval clearance operation. We are witnessing a fundamental shift in how asymmetrical maritime warfare is conducted in the 21st century. The adversary has brilliantly transformed a simple waterway into a multi-dimensional puzzle of overlapping kill zones. Understanding this selective blockade is the first crucial step to grasping the true peril facing the US fleet today. The US Navy absolutely dominates the deep ocean, but the Strait of Hormuz forces them into extremely dangerous littoral zones. These are shallow, highly congested coastal waters where multi-billion-dollar destroyers find themselves at a distinct disadvantage. The strait itself is 21 nautical miles wide, providing a seemingly broad expanse of navigable water for international vessels. By strategically seeding the outbound lanes of the traffic separation scheme, Iran forces shipping into dangerously narrow corridors. These tightly constrained transit routes are perfectly pre-sighted by their deeply entrenched coastal artillery and missile batteries. The maritime traffic separation scheme divides the waterway into just two highly restricted navigable lanes for massive commercial tankers. There are merely 2 nautical miles inbound and 2 nautical miles outbound, separated by a slender 2 nautical mile buffer zone. This translates to a total navigable ribbon of just 6 nautical miles across, significantly reducing the area needing explosive coverage. The Iranian military apparatus does not need to deploy an endless supply of munitions to completely mine the entire width of the strait. They only need to heavily mine a specific 2 nautical mile ribbon of water to completely dictate the flow of global maritime commerce. This geographic bottleneck is precisely why the hidden underwater explosives act as the unyielding anvil in their tactical doctrine. The anvil sits silently on the dark sea floor, patiently forcing armored warships and vital supertankers to significantly slow down. Once these massive vessels are trapped in the kill web, the terrifying hammer of asymmetrical combat is forcefully brought down upon them. This unrelenting hammer consists of highly mobile shore-based anti-ship missiles hidden deep inside heavily fortified mountain tunnels. Furthermore, the hammer incorporates lethal swarms of heavily armed IRGC fast attack boats constantly lurking in shallow coastal coves. Every single technological advantage possessed by a modern fleet is instantly neutralized when operating inside this complex littoral trap. They cannot simply maneuver their way out of danger when surrounded by thousands of deadly underwater sensors and incoming aerial threats. Any attempt to navigate this gauntlet without a strategic plan is equivalent to willingly sailing into a chaotic maritime slaughterhouse. The tactical reality demands a re-evaluation of how modern naval power projection operates within these highly contested coastal waters. This is why the most advanced warships on the planet find themselves paralyzed before a weapon first invented during the American Civil War. A steel cylinder packed with explosives possesses the most lopsided cost-exchange ratio in the entire history of modern naval warfare. Understanding this dynamic is absolutely essential for comprehending why the heavily guarded strait currently remains effectively closed. In 1988, a ridiculously cheap MO-8 contact mine nearly sank the powerful frigate USS Samuel B. Roberts in the Gulf. However, the modern underwater threat has evolved far beyond simple contact explosives into highly sophisticated bottom influence mines. Modern bottom mines do not need to be physically touched. They detonate only upon detecting a specific acoustic and magnetic signature. These intelligent sensors sit quietly on the dark seafloor, patiently filtering out small civilian craft to wait for high-value targets. Advanced smart mines are specifically designed to detect the prop wash or wake anomalies of a heavy vessel, ignoring small decoy boats. The absolute most terrifying weapon in this underwater arsenal is the EM-52, a rising mine that attacks from beneath at rocket speeds. When the sophisticated sensors classify the correct signal, a solid fuel rocket motor fires a heavy warhead upward through the water. You simply cannot armor the fragile belly of a modern warship against a stealthy weapon that brutally attacks upward at high velocities. Iran currently maintains thousands of these highly selective killers, creating the most lethal mine inventory in the entire Middle East. This unyielding gauntlet of smart influence explosives perfectly sets the stage for the terrifying vulnerability of Allied clearance teams. To understand why the world's most advanced mine-hunting technology sits unused, we must first deeply understand the weapons themselves. Naval mines operate on a terrifying principle that makes them fundamentally different from absolutely every other weapon in modern warfare. A cruise missile broadcasts a radar return and a drone emits heat, but a mine resting on the cold seafloor emits absolutely zero energy. It is virtually invisible to every single active detection system a multi-billion-dollar warship carries because there is nothing to find. The bottom influence mine utilizes a complex magnetometer, detecting the massive magnetic field generated by the steel hull of a destroyer. It also relies on a highly sensitive hydrophone listening constantly for propeller noise and a pressure sensor measuring the displacement. These three distinct signatures must perfectly align to trigger the fatal explosive charge, meaning small fishing boats will safely pass. The relentless patience of these programmable explosives fundamentally alters the strategic calculus of any commander entering the strait. They are the ultimate set and forget defensive weapons, requiring zero human maintenance while delivering an utterly devastating payload. A piece of steel with an explosive charge continues to dominate the most heavily trafficked maritime choke point on the face of the Earth. Every single navy in the world is fully aware of this terrifying reality, yet clearing them remains a monumental and deadly undertaking. We are witnessing the ultimate asymmetrical nightmare where a dirt-cheap submerged cylinder holds the entire global economy as a hostage. Deploying slow-moving minesweepers without establishing complete force protection from shore-to-ship missiles is an absolute suicide mission. The mighty United States Navy decided to radically shift their tactical approach to building something entirely different. Instead of sending vulnerable sailors into the minefield, they engineered 4 incredibly advanced unmanned systems for clearance. These high-tech drones are specifically designed to detect, hunt, trick, and thoroughly destroy dangerous mines without human risk. The system famously utilizes laser light fired downward from pods mounted firmly beneath an MH-60S Seahawk helicopter. The incredibly powerful LiDAR detection maps out everything beneath the near-surface water column, including dangerous floating mines. However, the laser light simply does not reach the muddy seafloor, requiring a completely different tool for bottom influence mines. This critical gap necessitates deploying the common unmanned surface vehicle, towing highly sophisticated sonar on a lengthy cable. Furthermore, the brilliant unmanned influence sweep system brilliantly tows a specialized magnetic sweep cable and an acoustic generator. Together, They ingeniously simulate the massive signature of a supertanker, cleverly luring the influence mine into self-destruction. Finally, for those incredibly stubborn explosives, the Navy smartly sends out an expendable drone called Archerfish. The operator securely inside the helicopter watches real-time video, decisively triggering a shaped charge to obliterate the mine. While these complex systems are an engineering marvel, deploying autonomous UUVs, or MH-53E Sea Dragon helicopters, makes them sitting ducks. The slow and highly predictable nature of a clearance operation exposes them entirely to massive Iranian air defense and cheap drone swarms. The audience truly loves hearing about the brutal, complex friction of modern warfare, rather than just a US military sales pitch. The reality is far more terrifying, as an LCS in a minefield is intensely focused entirely on sweeping and is painfully slow. They simply do not currently carry significant weapons for comprehensive self-defense against incoming mobile coastal missiles. Operating in this unforgiving environment without establishing a heavily fortified protective bubble is tactically catastrophic. The mobile anti-ship missile launchers, strategically hidden in dark mountain tunnels, are constantly hunting for vulnerable surface vessels. Any attempt to sweep mines demands robust, integrated defense capabilities that standard countermeasures absolutely lack. Finding mines is definitely not enough. They need to be aggressively tricked into detonating without putting thousands of brave sailors at risk. The entire technological chain, from detection to destruction, can theoretically be executed without a human body entering the deadly water. Yet, the brutal vulnerability of the advanced sweepers themselves heavily restrains the mighty fleet from entering the contested strait. The real question is not how the US Navy clears these weapons, but why they have not unleashed their technology yet. Because the military apparatus does not simply solve fleeting news headlines, they solve incredibly complex equations. This specific tactical equation has three critical variables that absolutely must converge before any clearance begins. If you sweep maritime explosives while the adversary is still manufacturing and laying new ones, you are mopping a wet floor. You can theoretically clear 100 traps from the dark water, but they will simply lay 200 more in the night. The operation never ends unless the fleet effectively shuts off the running faucet of hostile production facilities first. Devastating precision strikes have reportedly intercepted numerous mine-laying vessels at sea and destroyed them at their berths. The critical result is that the terrifying weapons currently resting on the muddy seafloor are the last ones they will deploy. Sweeping operations fundamentally require an impenetrable protective bubble to shield the incredibly slow clearance vessels. That essential defensive bubble has a terrifying name, and it is called the Formidable Amphibious Assault Ship USS Tripoli. This massive floating fortress carries up to 20 incredibly advanced F-35B stealth fighters and thousands of elite Marines. The stealth fighters provide the necessary overarching aerial dominance to suppress those hidden coastal missile batteries. Highly vulnerable mine clearance absolutely does not begin until this overwhelming protective bubble is firmly in position. The powerful USS Tripoli is the precise tactical answer to the coastal problems that standard carriers cannot safely solve. The first two variables of this deadly equation are now aligning perfectly to set the stage for the final economic squeeze. The final tactical variable holding back the mighty clearance fleet is not a military calculation, but a devastating economic reality. While the perilous geographic strait is not completely sealed off, commercial shipping traffic has plummeted to dangerously low levels. These deeply submerged underwater explosives absolutely do not check the specific nationality of the heavy vessels passing right overhead. The exact same lethal network that terrorizes international commercial tankers is currently completely suffocating Iranian oil exports. Global tanker operators will absolutely not send their massive vessels into a heavily contested maritime choke point without insurance. The skyrocketing war risk premiums, dictated by international insurance firms, completely erase the profit margins of any crude oil cargo. The regime built a terrifying asymmetric weapon to close the vital waterway to the world, but inadvertently closed it to themselves entirely. As these unyielding, explosive weapons sit silently on the dark seafloor, the heavily sanctioned domestic economy aggressively bleeds funds. When all three strategic variables perfectly converge, the formidable military will finally clear the waterway on entirely American terms. They will aggressively deploy their advanced lasers and autonomous drone swarms only when the complex tactical equation reaches its optimum. Here is the absolute billion-dollar strategic question that fundamentally challenges our entire understanding of modern global geopolitics. These hidden explosives are actively hurting Chinese oil supplies right now, far more than they are hurting the American domestic economy. Should the highly capable naval fleet just leave these deadly weapons exactly where they are and let Beijing deal with this massive mess? Let me know your detailed tactical takedown regarding this unprecedented maritime standoff down below in the active comments section.